Thanks everyone. Big E coming on the episode of Let's Football Live, part 2. And I'm going to try and add him on now. Anytime now. You can say hello to him. Waiting for Erik Paartalu all the way from Sydney. And there he is. In landscape mode, mate. If you can turn it around to portrait.
There we go. How are you, mate?
I'm good. How are you? Sorry about that. Clearly, my iPad didn't want you online on the same platform as me, but the phone works a lot better. So thank you so much for staying around. As you can see, a lot of people have been chiming in already. But first of all, welcome to this episode of Let's Football Live. I'm not sure if you got a chance to watch the one with Sandesh Chingan. But how are you spending your lockdown, Erik, all the way in Sydney?
Yeah, you have to remember we do things upside down here in Australia, Anant. So it took a little bit of time to get onto the internet yet, all the way down under. So no, it's been good. It's been obviously a difficult time for everybody. You know, myself included, everyone sort of on lockdown. But I get the feeling here in Australia that it's not been as severe as other countries. We've been quite lucky so far. And, you know, we're all just kind of holding our breath and hoping that the rest of the world, things settle down quickly for everybody, particularly overseas. The feeling is that, you know, Australia hasn't had it as bad as other countries. So, you know, fingers crossed for a quick recovery from everybody.
Yeah, certainly is. Yeah, I mean, it's all about acting in time, and I think we're doing a good job as well. It's like I was saying to the fans earlier before you joined in the conversation, I think it's day 18 for us. What's it for you in terms of the lockdown?
Yeah, it just started pretty much just after I arrived. So I arrived here 3 weeks ago to the day. And obviously I had to be in isolation for 14 days. And that kind of was a little bit of a grey area compared to you guys. I heard that, you know, you're completely stuck inside the house, whereas in Australia we're allowed to go outside for exercise. We can go out for the shops to get essentials. And I think a lot of people took advantage of that early on. And then they sort of, you know, tightened restrictions to being in groups of 2 when you go outside. You know, this week is the Easter weekend, and everyone's been told to stay in their own household. So just to make sure.
Yeah, it's a good call. But how have you spent that time? Have you been able to do any exercise at all? In fact, I had a question which came in early doors from a gentleman who you'd know very well called Cameron Watson, who said, "Proxy or isolation?" I have no idea what that means. I'm just gonna. I don't speak Aussie.
Wow. If you want to know the exact meaning for that, okay. So Cameron obviously played with BFC, and I joined the year after. And, you know, Cameron gave me a lot of advice about what to expect in Bangalore and India. And, you know, I went to his bachelor party in Bali after the first season in India. And, it was Carl Cox was playing in Bali. And so it's a running sort of joke between myself and John Johnson and Cameron Watson. So his banter's pretty poor though, so I think, you know, we'll let him off. We'll let him off for that one.
All right, okay. Well, swiftly moving on. But have you had a chance to? I know your wife's now with you because she's in Scotland, right? She's not in Sydney.
No.
I can't see you complaining too much, Erik. I'm sure you're more gutted than you look at the moment. But more significantly, are you spending that time cooking? How are you helping out in the house?
Yeah, I think when I came through the door, Mum had a list of jobs for me to complete, and then she realised that I'm still a professional footballer that trains every single day, once or twice a day. So I do what I can. But yeah, cooking's definitely something I've taken up. You know, I love to do it when the mood is right and when you've got the energy to do it. So what better time to sort of rekindle that in isolation? So I've been vegetarian for 12 months. So coming back to an Australian household, you know, not cooking meat is a little bit interesting for those two, Mum and Dad, but they're enjoying it.
Fantastic. I don't know if it's a Sunil Chhetri wave that started in Bengaluru, because I saw Harmanjot Kabra also going vegan and celebrating a year of having gone vegan and all of that. So that would be a bad thing for professional athletes. Virat Kohli does that as well for the cricket team. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, it does depend. It's a personal preference. And, you know, like I'm not going to be, you know, shouting from the rooftops for people to go vegan or to be vegetarian. I think particularly with young players, it needs to be a very balanced diet. What I did like to see, particularly from the Indian boys in the last couple of years, obviously we talk about the professionalism in football getting better, but the diet changes that you've had to go through to become, you know, more professional. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, cultural food, you know, running through the family and history that goes through India, whereas, you know, a country like Australia, we don't have any culture. We don't have our own sort of staple meals, if you like. So, you know, I'm sure the big athletes in India, they're the ones that are heading in the right direction, and it's great to see some of the boys following that.
Certainly is. We've been following your journey for a while, and you've been a journeyman footballer, Erik. I mean, much before you came to Bengaluru, you spent time in China, in Thailand, in South Korea, even in Qatar, if I'm right, before eventually coming to India. So we had a question from Pranav2672. He said, "How did you start your footballing career?" And I'm not sure if it's a cheeky dig at some of those muscles, but he says, in the gym or on the football pitch?
Wow. Okay. Well, it all started for me in the backyard, like a lot of people, playing with my older brother and my dad. And my brother's sort of 9 years older than me, and I just wanted to be like him as long as I could remember, just trying to chase him around in the backyard, trying to get the ball. And that sort of created an environment for me to be pretty tenacious and determined. You know, I've not obviously been a great technical player my whole career, but you know, I'm extremely hardworking and dedicated and determined to be, you know, very fit and able to get across the you know, the ground. And I think my position on the pitch, you know, certainly complements my attributes as a person and as an athlete. So it's it definitely started in the backyard for me, but you know, a lot of time spent in the gym, a lot of time spent on the field. But what it comes down to as a professional footballer is playing games. And you know, I'm very proud to say I've played a lot of games in my career, and hopefully a lot more to come.
It certainly is, which should have ideally taken us to, you know, the contract situation, and that you're going to spend another year with Bengaluru FC because that's been confirmed. But before that, I wanted to ask you more specifically about you know, in terms of the person who would have advised you to come to Bengaluru. I'm sure you had a chat with a few friends of yours in India or in Asia otherwise, who would have, you know, guided you to come to the Garden City.
Absolutely. I think at that point in my career, it was I was at a bit of a crossroads. I'd gone from being in the biggest club in Asia, in South Korea, in Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, a very, very big club. And I didn't really have a great spell there. I was kind of cast aside for a couple of months, and ended up in Qatar and playing in the Middle East for 3 or 4 months before leaving there. So I've moved around a hell of a lot in my career. So, you know, I had a period of about 4 or 5 months without a club, and I had to sort of really think about what I was going to do. I don't think, you know, giving up was an option at 30, 31, but I was, you know, sort of at a crossroads, as I said, to make sure my next move was going to be one that was, you know, for footballing reasons, but also for the soul. And India just seemed like such a different place to go and play football. And obviously having Cameron Watson play at BFC before me was a huge help. You know, knowing a player of his stature at the time that was going across to play in India, and, you know, he had some really complimentary things to say about the club. And, you know, my decision was made pretty quickly to come across to BFC, and, you know, and hopefully that can continue for a couple more years.
I'm glad he didn't, I can see Bengaluru FC chiming in with saying Agent Water. I'm glad he didn't convince you to head to wherever he headed next. We won't talk about that. Right. Okay. Now, just in terms of Bengaluru, and of course, I'm sure the BFC fans at large are extremely happy about, you know, you're continuing to stay with them. But just tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a Bengaluru player. I mean, you've got you're one shot of 50 appearances for them. You score goals for them. You win Hero of the Match awards for them. But just in terms of the mentality, the commitment, sort of the discipline, the sacrifices they make, and just the attention to detail in terms of fitness, if you can just talk about some of those things for Bengaluru.
You know, the club, it's an infectious place to be around. I think not very often in football do you find yourself being around, you know, an environment that is so hard-working and also so genuine. It's a real people person club. The people they've got working in the staff are just brilliant people from the, you know, the top to the bottom of the staff. The way that they, you know, choose players, they're not really just picking names or picking star signings to get, you know, bums on seats. It's all about quality, you know. And I think, you know, when I first arrived at the club, it was pretty evident straight away that you were working with some really hungry athletes. You know, we talk about Sunil Chhetri all the time, but he was kind of a big reason for re-signing again, because, you know, I heard him speak at our awards night after the season had finished, and, you know, he was really disappointed about how the season went. And if a guy like that is so hungry for success, you know, everyone is just right behind him and driving the team forward. And I think as a club, we haven't been in this position before where we haven't won a trophy. And it's a little bit arrogant, I think, sometimes to think, oh, we had 5 and 5 and 6 and 6, whatever it was. No one's guaranteed success in football. But what I can guarantee you is a huge reaction this year from the club internally and also from the players and the staff. And I think that was an easy decision for me to go, right, I want to lock into that environment again and be pushed every single day, which is what I want.
It's really interesting insight. And of course, it's almost like Bengaluru are judged by their own lofty standards that they've set because of reaching the final in the first season that they played in the Hero ISL and then winning it in the next season after the success of the Super Cup and all of that. But just but wanted to know more specifically in terms of, you know, when you spent your time with Bengaluru. I think there was a question that came in about I'm not sure who it was. I think it was Barsha who had asked the question about how you recovered from injury, because early part of the season you were injured, and then you only got your first start against Chennai, and of course then came the famous corner flag celebration. So just talk us through that comeback and then scoring that goal and the feelings of, you know, that moment.
You know, it's a long time in football when you've got a 5 or 6 month off season. I've been through it quite a lot in my career in the early stages of the A-League in Australia. You know, there was a good 4 or 5 month break. And the only difference is that you sort of come back and have this, you know, massive long pre-season where you're training for 4 or 5 months before you start again. Well, in India, you know, last season we had, I think, 5 months off, and then we came back and trained for 6 weeks before the start of the season. So it was a very, very quick start. But for me, my injury at the end of the last year was done and dusted just after the final was played. And I was back training in Australia the whole month of April all the way through till September. And I was in great shape. And then obviously I had a little training ground incident just rolling my ankle. And I just kind of had to sort of zone into being in that frame of mind that, you know, my time was going to come, and, you know, maybe it was for the greater good that I missed the first couple of games because, when I came back against Chennai, it was with a bang. And, you know, obviously we fell a game short by reaching the final, and that was disappointing. But, I'm pretty proud of the way I came back, you know, potentially being off contract this year and having the season I had. So I had a really good season.
Yeah, fantastic. I was just going through some numbers. I think after Miku and Chhetri, you got the highest goals for Bengaluru in the Hero ISL. I'm not sure if you knew that, although I know you do count your assists. So 2 goals and 5 assists in your...
You know, hearing something like that, they're 2, you know, massive names in football. But, you know, I won't rest on that, you know, that Anant. So I'll be in the next 2 seasons trying to get myself ever closer. But to those 2, I may not get past those 2.
All right, I've got a question from Adarsh who says, how would you rate this ISL season? I mean, if you were to rate it on 10, because the trophy didn't come, so it wasn't quite 7 in 7 for BFC, but how would you rate it?
For BFC?
Yeah.
For BFC. Yeah, I sort of tried to think about this earlier, how to, you know, think about this season, and I think this season will be one of the most important seasons for the club. It's the first time in that little, you know, my dad uses this analogy all the time, you know, we climb the mountain and every so often you fall back a few places on the ladder and you have to keep moving forward to then fall back down. And so I think this is BFC's most important season that we've just had because I think there was no one really being cocky or arrogant or complacent. But I think as a club, we know that it wasn't our best season. And internally, we know what that is. I'm not going to say on the air exactly what I think, but I imagine that we've all gone back and looked at what's gone wrong. And I don't see BFC taking a backward step now. I see us going further forward with more hunger and desire. So although we finished third and lost in the semi-final, I think what Carlos and the staff have done with the team that we had this year has been nothing short of a miracle. Because look at the amount of goals that we scored and the amount of goals we conceded. It was an immense job, and those guys that are playing every week and the staff at BFC should be really proud of their achievements this year, even though it didn't come with a trophy. And I just see next season as the rebound and make sure that we've learned from this.
Sure, and just to summarize that discussion as well, got a question from Aditya Narayan who said, what would you say has been the best moment of your football career? And he specifically mentions, you're not allowed to mention that night with Brisbane Roar. And you know exactly what that was. That was that the 120th minute equalizing header before it went to penalties and you got one in as well. Yeah, that's the one.
Can you see that, Anand?
I can.
So it's pretty much in my household what one of the greatest moments was in my career, but I'm not reminded of it that often, not honestly. But no, look, for those of you who don't know, that was a big moment in my career in 2011, scoring a header in the grand final in Australia that took the game to penalties in the 119th minute. So it was the last touch of the game to take it to penalties, and we, So apart from that, I have to say two things. One is playing for Australia. That was a very big moment for me. But I'd like to say that the other moment for me was winning my first trophy in my first season as a professional. So when I was playing in Scotland, I was playing in the first division in Gretna, and we went to the last game of the season to win promotion to the Premier League, and it was 2-2 in 90th minute, and we managed to score with the last kick of the game to make it 3-2, and we got promoted to the Scottish Premier League. So for me, the first one's always the sweetest, and having a good year that season, it was my first season in professional football. I was just like, oh, this is what it's going to be like every year, So I learned some huge lessons from playing over there, but that for me is a moment that I'll never forget.
Fantastic. I hope that answers Aditya's question, although I'm sure he'll be gutted that you didn't say something from BFC, but I'm sure that there's more to come, because obviously we're going to be talking about Bengaluru for a while here. Now, there are many questions about your favorite rival. I would imagine that's your rival club. And I know John Johnson's gone to ATK, and David Williams, the guy, knows you very well and keeps quoting you in a lot of interviews. Your biggest rival, Navneet Narayan, has asked that as well, and there's another person who'd asked that. Toughest opponent in Hero ISL. So Jatru 2006. You want to answer that together, the team and the player?
For us this year, it was Mumbai. Obviously, losing to them both times, and I think playing against Roland Borges is a great battle. We don't get close enough on the pitch because we both play this sort of the same deep lying position. But he's a guy that I just, if you see on a team sheet, you go, right, they're going to be solid today. And I think obviously you're a big fan as well, Anant, and from his displays this year, Mumbai for us were a team that we couldn't get past, and they made it very, very difficult for us. And we have to come up with something different for next year.
Yeah, Borges is certainly one of my favorites as well. That's a great pick. So Mumbai City FC, then your biggest rival. I hope that answers a couple of questions that came in about your big rival. But you mentioned Borges. Now Borges features in my ISL team of the season. Not like my ISL team of the season matters that much, but what does matter is your team of the season. I don't know if you've had the chance to give it some thought, because we've been asking fans, and I'm guessing fans who are watching this as well still have the opportunity to go on the Indian Super League website and make their team of the season. So, Erik, by the way, there's just one rule, which is you can't pick more than 3 players from one team, and that allows you to only pick yourself, Chhetri and Gurpreet, and not anybody else from Bengaluru. Just to make it abundantly clear.
Well, we'll start with that one first. So obviously, I have picked Roland Borges in my team. So he's the defensive midfielder in a 4-3-3.
You're going straight to the defensive midfielder, which is not surprising given your one.
Yeah, let's start with him. So Roland Borges for me.
Okay, Borges. All right.
Yep.
Okay.
We'll go back.
Writing it down just so that you stick to the rules.
Okay. So Gurpreet in goals, obviously.
Okay.
I'm going to go Prabir Das at right back.
Prabir Das at right back. Great season, yeah. 5 assists for him.
Yeah, can't complain with that. Numbers don't lie. Matada Fall and Lucian Goyen, 2 defenders.
Hold that thought. So no Juanan, no Serran, no Elisabia. You're going for Fall and
Goyen. So it was very difficult for me because I love playing with Juanan and Albert. They're guys that I have a great relationship with on the field. But I have to be honest with everybody, and Fall's had a great season. Statistically, you can't lie with what he's done. And Lucian Goyen, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but geez, he lifted that team all the way through to the final, and he's a great competitor. So you have to take your hat off to him.
I don't want to dig a grave for you. You can take the knife out of the back now. I just had to mention Juanan there because you played alongside him for such a long period of time. So Prabir, Fall, and Goyan. Who's your left back? Are you looking
Nishu
at
Kumar?
Okay.
He's had a great year. I've seen him grow, quite a lot in the last couple of years, and it's not easy playing with Sunil because I don't mean that disrespectfully. He's such a good player going forward that he's not in positions to defend a lot of the time, and we want Sunil being up there scoring the goals. But I think Nishu this year has learned his role a lot more, and you can see him becoming a more calmed influence around the team and being more calm on the ball. And I think he's going to go to another level.
Fantastic. So you've got 2 BFC players in there, Nishu and Gurpreet. You've got 1 ATK player in Prabir. You've got 2 Mumbai players in Goyan and Borges. And you've got 1 from Goa in Murtada Fall. So
Goyan's from Chennai, mate.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Chennai. We are already going a season back.
Okay, so Borges in midfield, and I'm going to go with Hugo Boomis and Rafael Crivellaro just in front of them.
Correct. Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to go with Williams, my good friend David Williams on the left.
Williams on the left. Okay.
Roy Krishna through the middle.
Okay.
And I'm going to go Jackie Han Singh on the right, which might raise a few eyebrows. But for me, that team, everyone loves watching Goa play. I just think he made the right decisions in the right areas more often than not in that position. And, he had a very, very strong season. I like watching him play. And I love everything that Goa was about the last couple of years. And it will be, very interesting to see what they can come up with,
So let me just recap this for you. Thanks for that, by the way. So Gurpreet in goal. You got Prabir and Nishu as your full backs. You got Murtada Fall and Goyan from Chennai FC. My bad, captain. In the center of defense, you got Borges as your defensive midfielder. You got Crivellaro, Williams, and Jackie and Roy Krishna. Have I missed out anyone?
That's it.
5, 4. Yeah. Perfect. Who's the captain?
Oh, jeez. Can I be? Well, I've got to go with a BFC guy, so I'll give it to Gurpreet for sure.
Safer bet, right? I'm sure Williams is gutted if he's listening to this.
Yeah. Let's see if he's listening.
All right. Okay. Fabulous. So that's your team of the season. That's a pretty strong one as well. Although I think my team might beat yours because I had Bartok Beche leading the line, who's got a few goals, and Valskis as well.
It's so hard to pick. Yeah.
It's tough. I know. Especially if you're trying to stick to the 6 Indians and 5 foreigners rule, which is not a rule, by the way. But you can do that. But yeah, just getting back to the team of the season, and once again, Bengaluru players featuring there again. No Chhetri, but there's Gurpreet and there's Nishu, which it brings us back to that mentality, but it also brings us back to the fans. So I'm going to use this opportunity to get across some fan questions that have been coming in. Now, we know that there are plenty of banners that we see with your name attached to it. There are also some Twitter handles doing the rounds. I'm sure some Instagram handles as well. There's one which is Aussie Midfield Genius, which I've come across a few times. This is Sparta is a banner, I think, that we keep seeing all the time. There's another one, Big Eric 24, but we won't get to that. There's Thor. And what do you like being called? The Protector of Paartalu? There's so many that go around, don't they?
I should never have lifted that corner flag up. Now I've started absolute mayhem. No, I think that's one of the nicest things you can have as a football player is to, create some sort of identity with the fans. And, from day one, I've had a great relationship with the BFC fans. And I like to think, everywhere we go around India and play that, teams are generally pretty, the fans are pretty respectful, and we need this. We need this engagement with the fans as athletes, and more so even now with what's going on in the world. It's important that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves, because we all need each other, and the game wouldn't survive if we didn't have these guys coming to the games. And if you look at our record, Anant, playing at home at Cantirava, I mean, it speaks for itself. We've not lost a lot of games there, and it's primarily to do with the BFC supporters.
You talk about the supporters. There was a question from Sunil. Now, you mentioned Scotland and Brisbane Roar, two of your favorite memories. But the best fans you witnessed, and he wants an honest answer. This is Sunil Markle who put this question, I think, on Twitter.
It's a memory that stuck in my mind for my whole career. I was playing a Asian Champions League game in Japan, and we were playing against FC Tokyo, and we got absolutely rinsed. It was like 4-2 or something like that, and we were doing our warm down lap, and all the fans had stayed and were clapping us off the field, and chanting, Brisbane Roar chants and Australian chants, and just generally just such polite, engaging fans. So I think the fans in Japan are probably the ones that I would have loved to have played a bit of my career in Japan. Didn't get the chance. But yeah, obviously the BFC's fans, I can't say anything else against those guys. But for me, that'll stay in my memory for a long time, was, playing in Japan, and just seeing the way that they engage and cooperate and, clean the stadiums after the games. They're just a different breed.
And there are plenty of chants that do the rounds as well, especially after you scored some of your famous goals, this time around. But Vijay had a question about which chant, apart from the ones for you, do you like the most? My guess is Santosh Ake, but I might be wrong.
Are we talking about other players' chants?
Any chants that you've heard anywhere. I mean, it could be at the Cantirava or anywhere else. But apart from the ones that are sung for you, which chant do you like the best?
It's quite funny, because when we're warming up in the stadium before the game, you're meant to have your game face on, and generally speaking, the fans will keep singing your song until you give them a little clap and an acknowledgement, And I'm not egotistical at all, but when they start to sing mine, I let them go just a little bit longer so I can hear it, and then sometimes the boys are like giving me a nudge to say, "Come on, just clap them, say thank you." But I actually like hearing them sing a song, because it's just obviously I've got a couple now, and it's funny, some of the boys wind up the other boys about their songs. Like, I think Wanan's got a song that goes like, "My heart goes Wanan."
That's right.
Wanan in the morning. And I'm like, Wanan, you understand what this means, right? Yeah. And so we're always sort of just looking for new ways, and it's funny when a new player comes, you're always thinking, what are these guys going to say about this player? Like, how can they make up something creative? So there's not one in particular that I would say that I enjoy. Obviously, Sunil's got a great couple of chants, particularly when he scores a goal. It just goes up another level. And, it's generally Sunil scoring late in the game. So that always gives us a lift. Yeah,
it's great, because some of them have been, picked up by fans across as well. So when the national team plays, they just, they go along with some of the chants that you hear at the club level. But you mentioned some of the players. I'm not sure if I'm getting this right, but Demon Creto had a question about which Indian player has impressed you the most in the ISL
this season. Well, I mean, we talk about young players. You know, Sumit Rathi for me was a guy that you know, came along leaps and bounds. He looks like a player that, you know, can play at another level. I think it's fair to say that yes, he got an opportunity as a younger player, and you know, if we all had that opportunity at that age, then we'd you know, be in a good position. But I just like watching him play. I just see something very you know, European about the way he plays. Very balanced. Like he's been in an academy his whole life, just being trained properly, and just an athlete already, but just so calm and composed on the ball. And he's a left-sided defender, so you know, it's a rare commodity in the game these days. I think for me, you know, these guys who are playing in India, you know, quite regularly in the ISL, you know, we hope the game goes to 27 games next season. But you know, in the future, we've got to be getting these boys overseas, whether that's playing as an Asian passport spot in countries like Australia, or it's getting them to go and play in Europe, because guys like him are coming on, you know, leaps and bounds. Suresh is another one in our team. Suresh had a great season, and you know, you can talk about his physical attributes, the way that he you know, plays the game, but you know, he's so adaptive. The coach asked him to play 3 different roles this year. He played at right back, he played in the midfield, and he had to do a man marking job. So he just took on the information so well, and you know, just got about his business. And you know, players like that who have got an older head on their shoulders are always going to make it further than the ones that you know, sort of sulk and just want to get their own way. But I feel that those 2 players for me are just the future for Indian football.
Yeah, Sumit Rathi, the emerging player of season 6 as well. And what is Suresh Wangjam called? I think it's El Torito or something that the fans have started calling him now.
I think everything in our club's Spanish now, so I guess we just make up Spanish names for everyone. No, I think it's because you like the little bull, and the way that he covers ground. I was thinking about it the other day to try and explain to someone why he's such a threat. And even at training, if you see him, you know, on the other team and he's 10 meters away from you, you have to be careful that you're looking at him before you receive the ball, because by the time the ball comes to you, he's already there. So he's so quick to cover ground. He's like a little bull, so it sticks.
Takes me nicely to cows then, Erik, because that's what the next question is, and that's coming from Akshay Prabhu. I told you there'll be a few mentions of that. Akshay Prabhu says, what's the one non-football thing you enjoy the most out here in Bengaluru? Of course, Akshay is in Bengaluru, which is why he's asking that question.
Well, you know, I wish I could get more involved with the cows, but I think now I've got another 2 years in Bangalore. I should be making more use of my time to do something, you know, a bit more for them. But no, look, Bangalore's a great city, as you know. Very comfortable living there. There's lots of great cafes and restaurants, and you're never too far away from the action in Bangalore. The weather's great. So, you know, my life's pretty boring outside of football, and it's especially in the Indian Super League when it's congested into the space of, you know, 5-6 months. It's when you're in it, and you don't have a break. It's like you know, traveling two days a week, and in the gym in your afternoons to try and get better, and then you're training every day. So it's there's not a lot of downtime, but you know, you sort of generally just getting out of the country. Like now, I was lucky to get home because obviously with the virus and everything kicking off, but you know, I would like to stay a little bit longer and just try and live a little bit longer in Bangalore as a resident rather than a footballer, because it's pretty full on at times.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure that makes, you know, people watching this in Bengaluru really happy. Ajit had a question about BFC, since we're talking about Bengaluru. What should BFC, he had 2 questions actually. What should BFC do according to you to top the table next season? And do you have any player in mind that Mandar Tamhane should consider signing?
Oof. I think it's a very delicate question to just say we need to sign a striker to score goals, because that wasn't necessarily the reason we didn't score goals. But, you know, first and foremost is we need to score more goals. Losing a player like Miku, it's like Goa losing Koro, it's like Kerala losing Ogbeche. etc., etc. I don't think you can replace these players that are not only so good on the field, but just have adapted to the way of life in India and have embraced it and have taken the game forward, it has to be said. So I think we've got a quality striker in Deshaun Brown. He didn't have a great sort of entry to Indian football because he was coming off the back of a 2 or 3 month layoff. So we only saw the best of him towards the end of the season. But he's dynamic, he's direct, he can score goals. And let's see what he can produce coming back into pre-season. But whatever Mandar and co decide to do, I think, we need to be able to score goals this year. I don't think we scored enough.
I don't know if you looked at all like Ogbeche, because I'm getting so many messages of Ogbeche, which takes me to my next question from Maitosh Mighty. Says, who's your favorite foreign striker this season? You've already answered the toughest opponent to face this season. So your favorite foreign striker?
Difficult one to answer because you're playing against them every week and you have so much respect for them, but you generally have to try and hate them a little bit because you know that they're so dangerous. But obviously I look at someone like an Ogbeche, and he completely plays out of his skin every week, and you can see he's still got that quality. The one that impressed me the most was Valskis. He was just such a raw number 9 that just scored goals. He just knew where the goal was. Second half of the season, Crivellaro just knew where to find him. And if Chennai are going to have anything to do with the title challenge next season, hanging on to those 2 players is going to be paramount for them. So, and obviously Coro, I love watching him play because he's just quality. But I think for me, Valskis was a new entry, if you like, to Indian football, and geez, didn't he do well?
And who's your best friend in BFC? Rocky Biswas has asked that question.
Best friend? I'm going to offend a lot of people. Probably Dimas. I have to say with Dimas, we've had this will be our 4th season together coming up with most of the boys in the team. But I think we share quite a bond on and off the pitch, and it's more the on the pitch relationship that sort of bloomed even more because I think there's just an understanding with him. He's obviously a quality footballer, but just understanding each other on a level that doesn't need to be communicated on. It's just it's a positional sense, it's a feeling, it's a touch of the ball, it's knowing when to look, when not to look, and I really, really enjoy that relationship getting stronger, and I feel every season it's got more and more trusting and more stronger. So for me, Dimas is probably my main man.
Since you mentioned Dimas, and of course there's some big pivotal figures in that dressing room as well. I actually had the opportunity to shoot in that dressing room a couple of times, but I was just wondering what it feels like to walk in with, say, a 2-0 lead at halftime against a side like Chennai, such strong rivals for Bengaluru, and compare that to, say, a Mumbai City FC game where Gurpreet just saved the penalty going into halftime. What is it like? Who are the pivotal figures who, stand up and be counted in that dressing room? Apart from Chhetri, I'm guessing, who's the obvious most vocal person there.
Yeah, I think that's when the manager earns their money. And I think Carlos has been really, really good at that, adapting to and sensing how the boys are feeling or looking going into the game. And it's generally a little bit of reverse psychology. Sometimes when you're playing well, to get a little bit angry and to try and, put a rocket up you, so to speak, is probably the best formula. And then if you're losing a game and not doing your job, it's, a lot of encouragement, also trying to rectify the situation, but, a lot of encouragement because in the ISL, you've got 15 minutes, but by the time you get to the dressing room, you've got, 12 or 11 minutes. And then at 3 minutes, you get a knock on the door. So you're really only getting in there for sort of 8-9 minutes max. So the gaffer's usually speaking for most of that time, and then it's all about resetting, and you don't get a lot of time to talk in the dressing room, but walking out into the tunnel, I think that's the big thing about BFC, finishing games strongly, is that we come out and you see the boys, everyone's, putting an arm around each other, talking to each other and making sure that we're going to do, you know, we're going to do this off the kickoff, we're going to do this set piece first, and hey, we can't do that again. So I think it's a very collective idea, but certainly before the games, a lot of it is with Sunil. You know, he has his Braveheart speech before the game, which is good. So we like to see that.
And who brings the music in the dressing room? I'd imagine it'd be Gurpreet, or is there somebody else?
Well, no, I think Kabra got shafted a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, he was for a little bit, but you know, everyone got sick of Punjabi music, thank God, because it's all the same song over and over again. So Dimas sort of took control, and I don't think he can be said that he's much better, but I think he's just the oldest, so he just pulls rank now with all the Spanish classics.
Right, yeah. Somebody else mentioned that today. I think Eugenison Lingdo on a phone call earlier on. But the other thing, of course, you know, how much are the fans discussed, the West Block Blues discussed in the dressing room, or when you guys meet up outside of, you know, the Kantirva?
Yeah, it's always a topic of conversation with the coach to sort of, you know, match the emotion and try and, you know, weave it in with the team talk, because we know, you know, there's some games that are bigger than others, you know, local derbies, you know, games against Kerala, for example, Chennai, you know, the bigger games where you're going to get a bigger crowd. And I think particularly for the young boys, it's kind of a learning curve being in that environment. So the gaffer's always trying to, you know, relay it to, you know, something that's from Bangalore, because a lot of these boys, if any, are from different cities. You know, we're not really from Bangalore, so you have to sort of feel that connection, and I think we all do. We live, you know, on the ground level, if you like, in Bangalore, so we're there every single day, as opposed to a lot of these teams that live in hotels all the time. They don't necessarily get out and see a lot of the world. So for us in Bangalore, it's a very special connection, and you get stopped on the street all the time, and you ask questions and for photos, and it's a nice relationship. So to you know, you get to the half-time talk, and if we're not going so well, you know, the coach will always be saying, you know, the supporters are going to bring us home. Don't worry. If it's still 0-0 or 1-1 in the 90th minute, don't worry. We're going to come home strong, because the supporters are there for us. And yeah, like I said before, look at the results we've had, particularly late on in games. It's no coincidence.
Yeah, fantastic. Any personal targets going into the next season?
Yeah, I've written a few down, Anant, but it's just going to depend on the length of the season. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with the coronavirus, and if it's going to be an 18 or a 27 game season. So I think every player would like to score more goals, more assists, more tackles. But for me, yeah, I want to try and build on the season I had last year, and just really believe that I've got another gear in me, and I feel like I do. So I've not been at a club this long, so this is the longest I've ever been with one football team, and this is new territory for me. So I'm going to make it my complete aim and goal that I'm going to go to a new level, because I'm in new territory myself.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't want to come on as a studio expert just yet. You have plenty of years left ahead of you. Although we enjoyed your company in the studio.
Yeah, I didn't get invited back this year, so.
And just in terms of you know, what you've noticed about Indian football, now you spend so much time, and you said with Dimas you've spent 4 years, now 3 years together in India as well. Just the future course of action as far as Indian football and Indian footballers are progressing.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a bit sensitive for a foreigner to say all these things, but I think I've sort of earned my keep a little bit by being there for a couple of years and seeing it. But it's a real shame that you know, the international games were cancelled. I think the national team coach has done a great job of getting the boys together. You know, a little bit longer than normal other national teams would get together. So he's sort of worked out the calendar when I can work with boys, when I can have a camp here and there. And now that's all going to stop. You know, obviously the boys are going to have a long break now. So I think what Indian football needs is 27 games. I think we're going to go to that if this all settles down. That's going to be great from a point of view of more games for every single player, but also for the squad depth. We talk about this all the time, having 2 foreigners on the bench. You know, 2 foreigners usually coming on and 1 Indian guy's coming on off the bench. So it's not enough for Indian football. But I think with 27 games, you're going to see a lot more rotation and boys playing, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 games as opposed to maybe a couple of appearances off the bench. So going and increasing the number of games is so important for Indian football. And the national team coach is in the right way to get these boys, you know, together even in the off season for camps. I know that was going to be a plan for him to have more time with them, but obviously with what's happened now, it's not sort of eventuated. But yeah, looking at it's going well. It's going in the right direction. I think we need to be patient and, you know, recognise that I don't think India's going to qualify for a World Cup anytime soon, but they should be looking to place well in the Asian Cup. And there's no reason why, you know, Indian football, you know, can't be a global force. It already is off the field. You know, the Women's World Cup was going to be there, and the Under-17 World Cup was there. But obviously there's big question marks, you know, over places, you know, people like Sunil Chhetri, you know, who's going to replace him in whenever he's going to stop, 5-10 years from now, who knows? But that's a big one for me. Someone else needs to step into that role now. And I think, you know, Sunil's just done so much for the game. It's a huge shadow that he's cast, but you know, it's been necessary. But now I'm looking at, you know, who's going to be that one. So I think there's a few candidates, but I think, you know, it's going to take time and certainly more games to find that gem.
So a longer season for more productivity and to improve faster. Now, just before we let you go, I know it's pretty late there in Sydney as well. So the guys who call you Thor, Biggie, Aussie midfield genius, this is Parta, and all of that, protector of Paartalu is another one that I came across. Your message to the West Block Blues, I'm sure have tuned into this.
Guys, it's a difficult time for everybody right now, and you know, we're all supporting each other here across the world. I would love to be able to be in Bangalore right now and to see some of you guys, and you know, particularly with everyone being on a very strict lockdown. Just know that we're all thinking of you here in Australia. Regards from my family, and you know, just stay safe and stay home. And football can wait for another couple of months, but yeah, let's be in this together and let's get through this. And I know football will come out the other side, and we'll be cheering all together again.
Fantastic, Erik. Thank you so much. That's the perfect note to end this on. Stay safe yourself. Stay home as much as possible, even though you're allowed to step out every now and then. And we hope to see you back fitter and better for your 50th ISL appearance for Bengaluru in the next season, whenever that may be. Thanks, Anant. Appreciate your time, mate. Thank you so much for doing this. Cheers. See you, mate. Bye-bye. Cheers, guys. Bye. Thanks, guys, for joining this second episode of Let's Football Live. The first one with Sandesh, this one with Erik, and we'll be bringing you more such episodes as time goes along. Keep coming up with your questions, and if you want to see anybody on these episodes, we'd love to hear from you. But until the next time, it's goodbye.